Funding for this program was provided by the Foundation for Excellence in Louisiana Public Broadcasting.
Don't get stuck on stupid, reporters.
The media dubbed him the Category 5 General. The mayor of New Orleans called him that John Wayne dude. Both titles seem to fit Army Lieutenant General Russel Honore.
At the height of Hurricane Katrina's aftermath, devastating aftermath, Louisiana looked to one of its own to begin leading us out of those dark days. His leadership of the Katrina Joint Task Force relief effort helped save lives, restore order, and inspire hope in many.
General Honore's blunt, forceful style of command and his emphasis on solving problems rather than pointing fingers uplifted spirits and created a sense of stability and direction that gradually replaced chaos and disarray. The lessons of self-discipline and adaptability that served him so well in the military and the humanity he displayed to the victims of the storms had their roots in Louisiana soil. Lloyd Honore and his wife Udell raised 12 children on their subsistence farm near Lakeland in Pointe-Coupee Parish.
They didn't have a lot of money. Most of them were farmers, but they had such a tremendous work ethic, and I think he learned early that hard work and a sense of family are the important things in life, and he truly got that from his background in Pointe-Coupee.
Their son Russell grew up poor, but hardworking, self-reliant, and proud of his Creole culture. The first in his family to go to college, young Russell pursued his dream of raising and showing cattle by studying vocational agriculture. In January 1971, he married his wife Beverly, graduated from Southern University, and was commissioned a second lieutenant. What was supposed to have been a short stint in the Army turned into a 37-year career that took him around the globe and to the very highest echelons of the military service.
I think throughout his military career, there was always a strong sense of compassion. I noticed that with all of his young officers, he was not only a mentor but a teacher to them, and he was always concerned with their career path.
General Honore's numerous commands included the 2nd Infantry Division in South Korea and the 1st Army, in charge of training all Army National Guard and Reserve troops east of the Mississippi. His awards include, among many others, the Defense Distinguished Service Medal, the Army Distinguished Service Medal, the Defense Superior Service Medal, and the Legion of Merit. In 2008, General Honore retired from the Army, but not from his commitment to disseminate the lessons learned from Hurricanes Katrina and Rita. When he's not promoting disaster preparedness, he still finds time to tend his vegetable garden, a relaxing connection to the humble country beginnings of a true Louisiana legend. Hello, I'm Beth Courtney, and welcome to Louisiana Legends. We are here in the home of someone who is very recognizable to everyone in Louisiana, certainly, and around the world, General Russel Honore. It's so nice to visit with you.
Well, welcome.
Thank you for having us in your home. It's amazing to look in your study here with all of these pictures around you. Have you moved everything, your military past, into this study?
Yeah, we left Louisiana in a 69 Oldsmobile with 2 suitcases and came back with 2 40-foot trailers full of stuff. And as you know, that's about what you do when you move around the world. We've been very fortunate.
Well, it is wonderful to have you back home in Louisiana, and as I was looking at some history about your early years, I was thinking, what was it like growing up in Lakeland, Louisiana?
Well, Beth, it was an interesting time. We were surrounded by family and friends. You know what Louisiana was in that time, a lot of transitioning happening around the country. But in that small neighborhood there at the end of the Bush and the Rougon Road, it was something always going on. We were small subsistence farmers and come from a family of 12. And it was either picking time, planting time, or some type of a field work going on, we were poor, but if somebody hadn't told you that, you wouldn't know, because we had a very rich upbringing in that we really didn't want for anything.
Well, you were the youngest, of course, of 8 boys.
Yes.
Now, did they pick on you?
Luckily enough, a lot of them had grown up and moved out of the house, but they were very supportive in what I was doing. I had 4-H projects, and they helped any way they could with me having the opportunity to have those projects and to be able to show them at the Southern University Livestock Show.
So you were all very fortunate in that you had a university degree, and you were always saying that education is important, right?
Yes. Our mom used to say, it's not about where you come from, it's what you do. And if you get an education, nobody can take it from you. That was a very empowering thing. And our teachers used to repeat the same. And I went to public school in Punkapi Parish, and I'm proud of it.
You say you were a C student in school, but you must have had a lot of leadership qualities early on, though.
Well, there was a lot of stuff going on with those 4-H projects, and then I worked every weekend at the dairy throughout high school. So that extra time to do that extra work to make that extra grade was normally the obstacle. It wasn't because I didn't want to do it, but stayed pretty busy with those extracurricular activities, which I love doing. 4-H Club and Future Farmers of America spent a lot of time talking about leadership, and they allowed you to have leadership positions, which was, I think, the beginning of my interest in the idea of when the time presents itself, don't be afraid to take lead.
The thought is, when you're a young child, you ingrain some things in your upbringing that helps you later on. And certainly as you graduated from Southern, you were commissioned as second lieutenant. Your family, were they pleased about that, or did they
absolutely.
They wanted you to go back and be a farmer?
Well, my dad just suited me come back and farm and stay close to the farming business, but they were very proud of the fact that I obtained a degree in agriculture from School of Agriculture at Southern, and then went into what I thought would be a 3 or 4 year time in the Army, because I had an obligation, and it ended up being a way of life for 37 years, 3 months and 3 days.
You know, to the day. Why do you think you had such a good fit there with the Army?
Well, the Army is a lot about success in the Army. Let me say this. Success in the Army is a lot about understanding the concept of teamwork. Success in the Army is a lot about getting along with people. Success in the Army is a lot about being able to adapt and overcome. And this rural background coming out of Punkapi Parish, when you are poor, you learn how to fix a tire as opposed to buying a new one, as long as you can. You learn how to take apart and fix it as opposed to replacing it. That mentality coming off this little scrappy farm, I can remember my first assignment in the Army, and competing with some of the guys who had gone through the Ivy League schools or the West Point. You know, the thing would break and everybody sat around and say, okay, let's fix it. Let's adapt and overcome. And that served me well in my early career. The other thing is that when you come from a family of 12, you understand that you got to learn to follow before you lead.
You had some good officers that you served
absolutely.
under, trained you too.
Outstanding officers. All of them recognized my strengths and weaknesses, and I'm happy to say they emphasized my strengths and gave me positions and jobs where I could optimize my ability to be in a place to physically get things done.
Well, you know, interestingly, in your book, Survival, and by the way, I'm very impressed that anyone who can write a book, that's fabulous, you say you identify yourself as Creole. Now, what does that mean to you? Because you were erroneously called a raging Cajun at one point. Clearly, people are confused about what does that mean to you?
Well, that's one of the little mystiques of being from South Louisiana. You go to North Louisiana and people ask you. But it's, I think it's more of a recognition that we are a people of mixed heritage. And in Louisiana, we've got a word for it. whereas the rest of the country is too sensitive or too politically correct not to speak to it. Mm-hmm. And we were fortunate enough to have that background of Native Americans who were here, African Americans, the French and the Spaniards. When I was growing up here in South Louisiana, it was discouraged if you spoke a few words of Creole in school. And by the time I grew up in the Army, they were advancing the idea of people learning French, mm-hmm. The mother language of this Creole dialect. So things had changed, but how I wish I had become fluent in that language. But my mother, father, uncles, older brothers spoke it, but they couldn't write it.
We did a documentary on the Creoles of Cane River, and that was so interesting.
Right.
A lot of the same names come around, though, too. Honroe, Darrensburg. What's your wife's maiden name?
Darrensburg.
Darrensburg. Mm-hmm. Well, there you,
Yeah.
You had foreign assignments as well. Korea, you spent a good time in Korea, did you not?
I had 2 assignments in Korea. One as a company commander in the early 70s, and then I went back some 25 years later as the commander of the 2nd United States Infantry Division along the demilitarized zone in South Korea.
Gosh, it's amazing that we're still there, isn't it?
Absolutely. And unless something changed, we'll be there for a time to come. I hope we can get the South Koreans to continue to build their forces, but in a better case, the North Korea would join the world community and stop being the enemy with the rest of the world and be friends, so we can pull all of our troops home. You have a son now who has served several times in Iraq. Yes, our oldest son, Sergeant Michael Honore, he's a member of the 256th Infantry Brigade of the Louisiana National Guard. We're very proud of him. He entered service up in Natchitoches while he was going to school at Northwestern. Had 2 tours in Iraq and served 3 years on active duty on extended mobilization, helping train National Guard troops going to Iraq in between his 2 tours. So we're very proud of him. And he's since gotten married. His wife's Nicole, and they're doing well. And he's in the process of continuing his service to the National Guard. When you look back on your career, what was the most challenging opportunity? You know, we're about to see one of those now. The most challenging time in the military since I've been in it was, you remember when we had the Cold War and President Reagan was very successful in using the very large build-up in the defense to show the Soviet they couldn't win. That was significant. But then 2 or 3 years after that, the government started talking about a peace dividend. Well, the war is over. Now we need to cut back on all this money we're spending in defense. And if there's a way to look back to figure out what's going forward, it would have to be the impact of trying to train and operate an army on a small budget. That was very frustrating. And there's talk about, again, going into that withdrawal. That was a very difficult time in the Army. For me, by then I was a lieutenant colonel and colonel in the Army, responsible for hundreds of troops. And to know there was training we needed to do, and as opposed to training until you got it right, you trained for a certain number of days. And there's always a question in your mind, if you had to go the next day, what would happen, because you know you weren't at the level you needed to be. So I see that coming again with this talk of reduction in the military budget, and it bothers me because we're not investing in future equipment, and we're getting to a point where the Department of Defense is talking about releasing 50 to 90,000 troops. They're going to reduce the size of the Army and the Marine Corps, and that scares me. We all remember when you came to help after Hurricane Katrina. On a Navy helicopter, went into the Superdome on Wednesday morning at 9:45 about.
And what did you see?
It was devastation. Coming into the city, it was underwater. As you come from Mississippi, you kind of pass over St. Bernard Parish. Much of that was underwater. And then we circled the Superdome and you could see the people. As you come down, you can see the people's faces, you can see the eyes. And it's a sight I'll never forget.
Was it a sense of this is a place and a people I know that I have to save?
I knew the priority was this was a logistics issue. Yeah. And logistics has to do with food, water, transportation, and stuff. And let's not make it anything but about that. Let's focus on getting the people out of here.
Let's not get stuck on stupid.
Let's focus on what the problem is. And, you know, the opening days of being on the ground, a lot of people were frustrated, emotionally charged. And if you were standing at the Superdome, you'd feel that way too. But I can remember the first day on Wednesday, just before dark, I needed to go see the mayor. I had flown to Baton Rouge to see Governor Blanco. She gave me orders of what she wanted me to work on, which was to focus on getting in motion a plan to evacuate the city, pulling together the FEMA buses and creating convoys to go to Texas. So I got back, I needed to see the mayor, and I told some of our soldiers from the Louisiana National Guard, we need to go see the mayor. And the quickest way is to walk through the crowd. I said, well, wait a minute, General, we need to get some more guards. I said, no, we don't need any guards. These are my people. We won't have any problem. And a couple of them said, okay, let's go.
And you didn't have a problem, did you?
No. We walked through the crowd and gave the normal New Orleans exchange. How y'all doing? And how you doing, bro? You here to get us out? I said, we're going to get you out of here.
Who called you that John Wayne dude?
That was Mayor Nagin.
Oh, he called you that. That's
yeah,
right.
Yeah, that was Mayor Nagin.
Yeah.
Probably the day after I got there. You know, there were a lot of people working hard. What Governor Blanco called Louisiana Navy was in there, people from volunteers from all over the state trying to get in those streets and evacuate people from the house. The Coast Guard was already there. The National Guard was in. And but come Friday, we had over 200 helicopters involved in search and rescue and evacuation. And by Friday morning, we finished the evacuation of the Superdome. And Friday afternoon, we went to the convention center. That was an experience I'll never forget.
Yeah, what was that like? Because that wasn't an official place to go, was it?
No, but they had as many people there as they had at the Superdome. Because the convention center around convention and partners, all that area was dry. Mm-hmm. So what they call in New Orleans the sliver along the river was dry. So people walked there and congregated at the convention center. And the crowd was equally large. The difference is it took us 2 days to evacuate the Superdome, thereabouts, to give a few hours. But we were able to evacuate the convention center in about 6 hours. The difference being we had enough buses, all the land around there was dry. And number two, we had opened the New Orleans airport, which we had a large group of wide-body airplanes there waiting for the people Saturday morning. And that was a lot of collaboration between the state and the city and the Department of Defense supporting the effort on the ground to make that happen.
What was the most frustrating part of that whole time?
To get people so they can communicate. And I'm not talking about interpersonal communication. I'm talking about reliable communications. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. So people would know what's going on. You know, a lot of public officials would say things, but they forget that the victims can't hear you. Yeah. After a disaster, that's one of the biggest issues. That's why we tell everyone have their weather radio or hand crank one so you can stay informed. Katrina was a life-changing event in that it changed the way we do shelter. The Red Cross and the government has decided they will not do those large shelters anymore. because they're almost in management. You can't manage them.
You were interviewed a lot, and the focus of the world was on you there, even though you were concerned about logistics and getting people out. Here are some phrases, and are they all attributed to you? Get those damn weapons down. When was that? When did you say that?
The weapon comment came on Friday, early Friday morning, as we were moving. The National Guard was moving into New Orleans, and we continued to plan through how things were going to go in our mind. A thought came to me, and I called General Landry, the Adjutant General of the Louisiana National Guard, and said, let's agree to tell the troops to put their weapons down. He said, that's a good idea. Because the night before, news had gone out that had not been substantiated by everyone, that there were snipers in New Orleans.
Right.
Many of those troops that were coming to New Orleans heard that news en route. So the idea is, how do we mitigate that we don't have a threat from snipers in the city? This was a function of logistics, not a function of urban warfare. But that story had taken its own, and General Landry and I agreed to adjust that rule of engagement to have the troops put the weapon on their back. The unfortunate thing, through the movement throughout the night by some of these soldiers, and some of them fresh out of Iraq, when they heard that word sniper, nobody could turn that off in their brain. And when they came around Poitras and Convention, some of them still had their weapons up. And then there were other armed people on the ground. SWAT teams from all over South had come in to help. And of course, they had police chain of command. They didn't get that word. And so I stood there for about an hour until I got enough of the National Guard guys in there to stay there and tell them, don't turn that corner with your weapons up. Put your weapons down.
As you've put your weapons down now, as you go into your retirement here back in Louisiana, I know your family's happy to have you back here. Is your wife happy to be home?
Yes.
Very much.
She's very happy to be here. You can see her getting that little itch because we've been here about 2 years. That's been our life cycle, move about every 2 years, but she understands that we won't be moving out of this house for a while. And when she gets a little antsy, I tell her, take a trip. Or get it out of your system because we're not moving for some time.
But you do have some plans in the future. What's in the future for you?
I would like to, inside our immediate family and my extended family to nieces and nephews and cousins, is to show them that you can go in business, and when you go in business, it helps your whole family, number one. And number two, what does it take to go in business is to find a problem and fix it, or solve somebody else's problems. And how do we select that business? How do you develop the business plan? How do you develop the capital? How do you develop the teamwork in the family? Because when poor people go in business, they raise the whole family. And coming from a farming background, and some of my relatives are in construction and other lines of work, I think there are a lot of opportunities that if we can demonstrate that and get good at it, we could help extended family and people in the community understand that being in business is an empowering event. One of the things I'd like to leave is having given each one of our 4 kids the opportunity to be in business, then reach out to those nephews, cousins, neighbors, kids down the street, and try to give them opportunity to be in business.
Well, and you've been giving back an awful lot to Louisiana with Boys and Girls Clubs and Red Cross and chairing the Bicentennial Commission. So we're very lucky to have you back here with us, and we thank you for visiting with us today, General.
Well, thank you, and thanks for coming.
Thank you. All right.
Bless
and
you.
Thank everyone for joining us on Louisiana Legends. I'm Beth Courtney. Good evening.
For a copy of this program, call 1-800-973-7246 or go online to www.lpb.org. Funding for this program was provided by the Foundation for Excellence in Louisiana Public Broadcasting.